9 spine-chilling motel horrors exposed. Terrifying true encounters that will haunt you tonight. Jessica Thompson gripped the steering wheel tighter as the car sputtered, a coughing machine finally giving in to the midnight darkness of Route 66. Weary and drained, they needed a break. Behind them, the vast emptiness of the Midwest loomed, each mile further solidifying their despair. Another mile and we'll find something, Mike promised, but the shadows stretched ominously around them, whispering secrets. Just then, a flickering neon sign pierced the gloom, its blood-red glow reading Eden Motel. A semblance of hope or a warning. Stepping inside, the lobby hit them like a cold wave. Mr. Grady, the owner, was an unsettling sight, his smile too wide, too eager. The air was thick, almost suffocating. The walls bore witness to something dark, peeling wallpaper revealing lost stories of those who had come before them. The flickering lights cast shifting shadows, making Jessica shiver. "Let us get to our room," she hurried her family, urging Blake and Lily forward. Every step seemed to echo through the silence as they settled in, but the eerie calm rapidly shifted. Odd thumps reverberated from the walls, sounding like footsteps trailing too close behind. Jessica's instincts kicked in, her protective nature roaring to life. "It's just old, Jess," Mike reassured, but the warm veneer of comfort was shattered by a chilling message appearing on the bathroom mirror. "You're not safe here." The chills sunk deep into their bones. "What was that?" Lily whispered, clinging to her mother's side. "We're fine," Jessica snapped, forcing her heart to slow. Then they heard the faint conversations of travelers drifting from the lobby, and a weary man revealed the truth: families had vanished from the Eden Motel. It clawed at their sanity, turning trivial motel fears into a waking nightmare. Before they could digest this news, there was another knock at their door, louder this time, reverberating through the room. Panic smothered Jessica's breath. "Stay close to me," she hissed, her fingers trembling as she reached for the door handle. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." "Now let's continue." The knock returned, more insistent, and the voice on the other side chilled them to the core. "I hope you're not planning on leaving so soon." Tension crackled in the air. Mike glanced at Jessica, his protective instincts clashing with her rising dread. The flickering lights echoed the shadows closing in, each creak of the floor sending shards of fear into their hearts. Would they confront Mr. Grady or dive into the uncertainty of night? As they whispered frantic plans, another thunderous knock slammed on the door. The family stood frozen, breaths held, as the shadows loomed, and the night seemed to shift around them. Whatever haunted the Eden Motel was closing in, and they were far from safe. The floorboards creaked ominously underfoot as Jessica took a hesitant step toward the door. The cold sweat of fear trickled down her spine, making her skin crawl. "Should we open it?" Mike asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Jessica glanced back at him, every instinct screaming for her to just get the kids and run. "Stay behind me," she instructed firmly, trying to project strength despite the icy grip of terror holding her heart. "Please, just go away," she called out to the voice beyond the door, a desperate plea that echoed thickly in the cramped space. Silence greeted her response, heavy and laden with malice. The stillness stretched, each second intensifying the gnawing anxiety. Then came the raspy sound of laughter, distorted, as if coming from many throats. It sent a chill through Jessica, the kind that settled deep in her bones. "Mom, please don't open it," Blake begged, pulling Lily closer. She could see the terror reflected in their wide, innocent eyes, their small hands trembling. A sudden pounding broke through, shaking the door on its hinges. "You really shouldn't have come here," the voice snarled, static crackling alongside it like a radio that had lost signal. The lights overhead flickered again, struggling against the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. In that moment, Jessica's mind raced, recalling the man in the lobby sharing tales of vanished families, memories replaced with shadows. Panic surged as her heart raced. "We need to get out of here," she shouted, turning to Mike, her voice fraught with urgency. Another echoed knock reverberated outside. "You can't leave!" it yelled, the words carrying an undercurrent of twisted glee that sent a fresh wave of terror crashing over them. "What do we do?" Mike asked, his brow furrowed, scanning the dim room as if searching for an exit that wouldn't lead them deeper into the clutches of night. "Grab the kids, we're going out the window," Jessica decided, darting towards the windows that looked out onto the empty stretch of the motel lot. As they drew near, an instinctual weight bore down upon her, a sense that they were being watched. Suddenly, the bathroom mirror fogged over once more, revealing a new message: "It's your turn now. Get away from there!" Mike screamed as Jessica yanked her children back. The message loomed like an omen, suffusing the air with an eerie foreboding. Just then, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness before the darkness surged alive. Shuffling, whispering something was moving outside their door. A creaking sound followed, as if something sizable was shifting into position. A chill clutched Jessica's throat. Ignoring her trembling hands, she quickly shoved her face against the glass, eyes wide, scanning the parking lot for any sign of help or escape. Instead, looming shadows danced in the moonlight, twisting unnaturally among the vehicles. "What is happening?" Lily's voice trembled, raw with fear. "It's okay, honey, stay close," Jessica reassured, though her composure was fraying. They were trapped. She felt it in her gut. As if sensing their despair, the knocking turned frantic. "Let me in!" the voice wailed, morphing into a haunting lamentation that seeped through the door, curling around their ankles like tendrils of smoke. Jessica's resolve hardened. "We are leaving now!" She spun to the window, heart thumping as she shoved it open, the glass scraping against the frame. The world outside was cold and unforgiving, but the dark spaces behind them felt even worse. As Mike began to lift the children out, the malevolent laughter swelled, echoing with desperate glee. Jessica's heart pounded painfully, her instincts shielding them from the unknown. They were just about to climb out when a voice, low and menacing, rumbled from within. "You think you can escape? You belong to us now." Fear clawed through her, but the whispers kept rising like a tide. The shadows from inside, seeking their prey, swarmed toward the open window, stretching like hungry hands to pull them back into the darkness. Would they make it out alive? Or would the Eden Motel claim another family? Jessica let out a scream, her pulse racing as they plunged into the unknown night. The chill of the night air hit Jessica like a slap, her heart hammering wildly as she and the kids tumbled out of the window. The gravel crunched brutally underfoot, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence of the motel. Panic surged as she gripped the children tightly, darting away from the suffocating walls that loomed behind them. "Run! Run!" Jessica urged, her voice strained. She could feel the laughter echoing in the distance, raucous and tormenting, wrapping around her as they sprinted toward the farthest end of the parking lot. Blake and Lily's terrified breaths quickened at her side, small legs pumping against the jagged stones. They didn't look back, couldn't look back, yet the shadows danced at the edges of her vision, taunting her with familiar dread. With every second, it felt like something hungry was closing in, its presence palpable. As they reached the edge of the parking lot, Jessica glanced back, heart clenching. The window where they had escaped remained wide open, an ominous dark maw welcoming the night. The air grew thick with a musty smell, a palpable, stifling weight that made it hard to breathe. "Mom, what is happening?" Lily cried out, her voice trembling as she glanced up at her mother. "Just stay close," Jessica hissed, forcing a semblance of calm into her voice. "I promise we'll be okay." But with every step, doubt burrowed deeper. They needed a car, anyone, anything to flee this nightmare. Suddenly, the ground shuddered underfoot. A low growl reverberated from the depths of the motel, penetrating the silence like a knife. Jessica turned to see a figure silhouetted against the faint light from the window. Tall and twisted, it stood unnaturally still, shadows coiling around its form like smoke. Lily whimpered, clutching Blake's shirt tightly. "Mom, what is that?" "I don't know," Jessica replied through clenched teeth, terror clawing at her throat. The figure swayed slightly, and she could hear whispers, a chattering that sounded all too familiar. She forced her legs into motion, inching toward the parking lot exit, urging her kids forward. "Come on! We need to move!" As they reached the main road, the distant echo of a horn shattered the oppressive quiet. Hope ignited a car. Jessica sprinted toward the sound, adrenaline pushing her forward. But as they got closer, a sickening realization dawned. The headlights of the vehicle flickered like ghosts, its engine sputtering, refusing to start as if it too were tainted by the horror that chased them. "No! No, please!" Jessica screamed, pounding her fists against the hood, willing it to come to life. The shadows behind them began to swell, the dark figure from the motel reaching the edge of the parking lot, droplets of moonlight glistening against its tattered form. The voices rose, a cacophony of laughter and cries, melding into a dreadful symphony that drowned out Jessica's frantic thoughts. With terror fueling her, she ran to the driver's side, pulling on the door handle, praying for it to yield. Nothing. It wouldn't budge. The shadows danced closer as if anticipating their next move, the whispers clawing at her mind, filling her head with fear, taunting her. Suddenly, a piercing scream broke through the darkness. Not from Jessica or the kids, but from the depths of the motel. Her heart sank, understanding that they weren't the only ones in danger. "Mom, what is happening?" Blake cried, his voice small and frightened. "We need to keep moving," Jessica shouted, desperation fueling her flight. "We can't stay here." The light from the motel brought a moment's clarity, illuminating the approaching figure in its grotesque detail: a misshapen head, hollow eyes, and an insatiable grin that seemed to stretch impossibly wide. Jessica's breaths quickened. They were out of options. "Please, we can't die here," she breathed, her voice shaking with fear, her blood running cold. Then the ground trembled again, more violently this time, shaking the car as the shadows closed in on every side. She felt the claustrophobia of the darkness wrapping around them. At that moment, a faint glow appeared in the distance. It shimmered like a beacon. Was it salvation or something worse? "Over there!" she shouted, pointing toward the light. But could they reach it before the darkness swallowed them whole? "Hold on tight," Jessica urged, racing towards the light with her children at her side, fear and hope colliding in her chest as the shadows surged behind them, hungry and relentless, just a breath away from pulling them into the abyss. Jessica sprinted toward the distant glow, each step feeling heavier, like the weight of the world pressed down on her chest. Blake and Lily were right behind her, their small hands clutching her shirt, pulling her back even as she pushed forward. The laughter, now a discordant symphony, wrapped around them like a noose, growing louder, more menacing with each passing moment. "Mom, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, her voice trembling against the night's suffocating silence. "Almost there. Just keep running," Jessica urged, adrenaline threatening to burst from her veins. But as they drew closer, the glow flickered like a dying heartbeat, creating illusions in the darkness. A sudden snap echoed through the stillness, reminiscent of a twig breaking, but its source escaped Jessica's vision. She hesitated for only a moment, dread creeping into her gut. "Go! Keep moving!" she screamed, and the urgency in her voice propelled them forward, straight into uncertainty. They lunged towards the light, and it became clear as they neared the source a rusty old gas station stood under the flickering neon sign. It sputtered like the dying car, barely lighting the cracked pavement beneath their feet. Hope twisted into despair as the realization hit no one was inside. "Mom, can we stay here?" Blake asked, panting heavily, fear radiating from his wide eyes. She scanned their surroundings, panic clawing at her throat. A gas station meant cars, but the foreboding emptiness felt worse than facing whatever pursued them. "No," she replied, her voice breaking. "We need to find help. There has to be someone," but the shadows were relentless, ebbing like a tide. They encroached closer, whispering secrets too horrible to comprehend. "Please!" Lily cried, pulling at Jessica's hand. I don't want to go back. They huddled together, darting their eyes around, desperate for any sign of life. The gas station appeared frozen in time, dust clinging to the air like cobwebs. Jessica noticed a flickering light in the back, maybe a garage. Perhaps someone still worked there. She felt a spark of determination ignite. Stay right here, she instructed the kids, pointing firmly to the overhang at the front of the building. I'll check it out. Mom, no! Blake protested, his entire body shaking. Please! Just stay put. I'll be quick, Jessica insisted, her heart racing as she trod cautiously towards the gloomy garage. The door creaked ominously as she pushed it open, revealing shelves lined with ancient tools and machinery, all cloaked in shadows. The smell of grease mixed with something far more sinister, something damp and rotten. Panic bubbled inside her, as she felt more than heard the whispers beckoning her deeper into the room. Jessica peered into the dim light, searching for anything that could help them escape. A single flickering bulb illuminated a decrepit figure hunched in the corner, clinging to a toolbox like it was a lifeline. He seemed human but twisted, his spine arched sharply, patchy hair hanging like strands of rotten hay. Help! Jessica called, though a shiver of fear ran through her. The figure shifted, revealing hollow eyes and a broken smile that twisted her stomach. Why are you here? He croaked, voice raspy as if he'd long ago lost the ability to speak normally. The stench of decay wafted towards her, making her gag. From the ghosts of witnesses. We need help, she stammered, trembling. Then behind her, she heard the unmistakable sound of laughter echoing through the dim space, sinister and filled with menace. In horror, she turned back to the door, only to find the entrance obscured by a wave of shadows, dark shapes twisting and writhing, solace now a fading memory. The gas station light flickered one last time, before plunging the room into darkness. Jessica's breath hitched, panic surging, and she called for the children, her heart pounding louder than the shadows creeping in. Blake, Lily! But their names vanished into the consuming darkness, swallowed by an otherworldly silence. She could feel them, could sense them, but everything was wrong, and then she saw it. The grotesque figure, joining the shadows, the laughter melding into something sharper, a promise of despair. Desperation clawed at her as she looked for a way out, knowing that staying meant more than just facing whatever haunted this place. It could mean condemning her children to join the whispers of the damned. What awaited her in the suffocating abyss just beyond the flickering light? Get out! She screamed, the fierce instinct to fight back pulsing through her veins. With nowhere left to turn, one question echoed in her mind as she braced against the encroaching darkness. How far would she go to save them? The darkness pressed in on Jessica like a vice, every second stretching into eternity. She could feel the shadows curling around her, their cold tendrils brushing against her skin, taunting her. The air turned thick, heavy with dread and the stench of decay that clung to the figure in the corner. Blake! Lily! She cried again, her voice strained and cracking. Panic laced her words, tightening around her throat. The chilling laughter echoed in her ears, a sound that offered no comfort, only dread. She fumbled, heart racing, feet scrambling across the uneven floor towards the flickering overhead light, even that felt like an unreachable sanctuary. As she strained to glimpse the door, she remembered the children and the promise she'd made. They depended on her, and she couldn't let them down. Stay together, she shouted, battling the suffocating silence. But the shadows continued to swirl, weaving intricate patterns of fear that clawed at her sanity. She took a tentative step back towards the light, but then the figure shifted again, its hollow eyes locking onto hers with a predatory focus that paralyzed her where she stood. What do you seek? It rasped, voice dripping with a hunger that went beyond flesh. Jessica's skin crawled as she forced her eyes away from its ghastly smile, inching towards the back of the room where the shadows merged like liquid ink. Just help, she stammered, inching back as if retreating could somehow offer protection. The laughter changed, morphing into a chorus of whispers, each voice layered with malice, weaving their way through her thoughts. They're already lost, you know, croaked a voice from the shadows. They've joined us. No! The defiance surged through her, ignited by the unbearable thought of losing her children. She scanned the dark corners frantically. Blake! Lily! Silence answered her. It was as if the shadows were swallowing not just her words, but the very essence of her bravery, feeble at the moment. A dread settled over her, an icy reminder that these sounds were mere illusions played by the horrors of the gas station. Behind her, movement disrupted the suffocating blackness. She turned, heart in her throat, as the figure emerged from the shadows. It took a step, then another, revealing the full grotesqueness of its frame, something that wasn't quite human but was too real to be imagined. Jessica stumbled back, the cold tiles slick beneath her feet, sending her crashing into a shelf of tools. Metal clattered, clanging like a cacophony of warnings. Fear coursed through her veins, electrifying her body into motion. This was the moment. She could not let the shadows claim her. "Get away from me!" she screamed, grasping an old wrench from the ground, raising it defensively. The creature paused, its broken grin widening, revealing rows of jagged, yellow teeth. "Your children are here, Jessica. They're waiting for you to join them." The words slithered into her mind, chilling her the core. She fought back the tears threatening to spill, pushing thoughts of surrender back into the darkness. With every fiber of her being, Jessica took a breath, grounding herself. She needed a plan, but fear wrapped around her thoughts, blurring everything. She made a move towards the door, her mind racing. The children could still be out there. But the shadows spoke again, their whispers echoing louder. There's nowhere to run. As she reached for the handle, the silence shattered with the sounds of laughter echoing, taunting, celebrating her impending doom. A surge of determination ignited within her, mingling with the instinct to protect. This wasn't over. She had to confront the darkness, before it consumed her family entirely. But the shadows shifted once more, thickening as they closed in around her. She turned, the wrench gripped tightly in her hand. "Show me!" Jessica shouted, heart pounding, the terror of what lied behind her forgotten in an instant. If she had to fight the damned, she would. Then, in a chilling moment of realization, she felt something brush against her legs, soft, little hands in the abyss. What had they become in the darkness, and how much time did she have left to save them before they fell completely into the night? The softness at her leg froze Jessica. She could hardly breathe. Her heart beat wildly, pumping terror through her veins. Instinct screamed for her to look down, to see what she already feared. "Blake? Lily?" she whispered, voice trembling. Ignoring the creature in front of her, she knelt, hoping against hope these were her children's tiny hands. The shadows whispered, twisted words curling around her ears, the laughter rising in a deafening crescendo. They were toying with her, mocking her desperation. But she had to know. Her hands closed around the warmth at her ankle. "Please, please be you." With a swift pull, she yanked at whatever was clinging to her leg, the darkness parting like a curtain. Two shadowy figures emerged, clouded but unmistakably human-shaped. Her children. They weren't whole. Their features shifted like smoke, faces flickering between her memories of them and grotesque phantoms. She felt ill, bow rising as dread washed over her in waves. "Mommy!" Blake's voice echoed, a hollow imitation barely recognizable. "You shouldn't be here. We're safe here." "No! This isn't safe!" Jessica shouted, pulling them closer, wrench in hand. The shadows threatened to devour her words, to snatch her children back into the abyss. "We have to get out. Now!" Lily's eyes, a sickly blend of hollow sockets and glimmering light, were fixed on her. "Join us, Mommy?" "It's so nice." Her voice was laced with a seductive sweetness that turned Jessica's stomach. "No!" Jessica screamed, the wrench slipping slightly from her sweaty grip. A pulse of raw fear surged through her, fueling her maternal instinct. "You're not my children! You're not real!" With a ferocious shove, she pushed the figures back, expecting them to dissipate. But they clung tighter, securing themselves with desperate fingers. The shadows stretched around them, hungry for her obedience, reeling her in. "Stop!" Their voices layered over one another, a terrifying symphony, some shrieking, others whispering, stay with us, stay." The creature advanced toward her, its smile split wide, teeth like crooked daggers. "This is where they belong, Jessica. They have been waiting for you." Her eyes darted back to her kids. The glimmer in their forms faded, dark sockets lurking beneath the surface. They stared at her, pleading and threatening all at once. With renewed strength, Jessica raised the wrench high, dark thoughts swirling in her mind. If these weren't her children, then what were they? Figures carved from her worst nightmares, a trap designed to shred her heart. She couldn't let them take her. She must fight. Gathering all her courage, she swung the wrench, the metal slicing through the air with a primal cry. The blow connected, but not with clarity, more like striking smoke. A chill raced through her arm. The entity howled, a sound that rattled the very remnants of her soul. The shadows pulsed around her, swirling with ferocity, blinding her momentarily. Jessica blinked against the darkness, her mind racing to grasp any bit of clarity. What did she need to do? Find them. The shadows laughed, the very air thickening with malice. They are ours now. With every nerve screaming in protest, she leapt into the heart of the shadows, wrench still swinging. She had to believe they were still there, buried somewhere within the dark. "Blake! Lily!" she cried out, lunging deeper into the depths, shadows clawing at her everywhere. "I'm coming!" She felt more than heard their echoes, a faint call layered beneath the whispers of despair. With desperation fueling every heartbeat, she plunged forward, arms reaching out, adrenaline pushing her through the darkness. Would she find her children before the shadows enveloped her entirely? The thought cut through her like a knife, deep and serrated. Without warning, everything went cold. The laughter subsided to an unsettling stillness. Time stretched, each second heavy with dread. Had she lost them completely? Then, just as hope dimmed, a flicker of light broke through the dark, a single, blinding glint reflected from the wrench. "Mom!" Jessica's blood turned to ice as she recognized that voice, pure and real. But it came from the depths of the darkness, where the shadows danced in tortured glee. She felt the pull, the insidious grasp trying to reel her in. "Help me find you," she whispered into the void, each word breaking against the weight of the silence. The response was a low hum, building into chaos, the shadows recoiling, flickering at the edge of her vision. Battle lines were drawn, the clock ticking down. Could she outlast them, fight them back, and reach her children before the darkness claimed everything she held dear? A little longer, Jessica breathed, pulse pounding, ready to plunge into the unknown. What if she didn't make it? Would the shadows claim her children in a way so horrifying it would tear her apart before she even got close? Was she destined to be another lost soul in the dark? Jessica pushed past the biting cold that swept through her, her body shivering from the chill of despair. The shadows flickered like dying embers, and everything around her turned into a twisted playground of dread. She could almost taste the fear that hung thick in the air, a bitter tang that reminded her of the sweetest moments with her children. "Mom!" That voice again, bright amidst the darkness. The shadows roared, drowning out her heart, but she could not be deterred. She began to run, her feet stumbling but her heart set on the sound. "Blake! Lily!" she shouted, desperation lacing every syllable. Silence fell at her words, a noxious, heavy silence. She felt it smothering her, wrapping around her neck like a noose. The familiar sound of their laughter was replaced with whispers, remnants of lost innocence that gnawed at the edges of her mind. With every step, the shadows writhed, their clingy fingers scraping at her skin, as if trying to siphon away her strength, her hope. They hissed and cackled, unrelenting, the sounds rising into a cacophony that filled her ears until she could hear nothing else. "Join us, stay with us, no!" she screamed, pushing deeper into their relentless grasp. Her lungs burned with the effort, but the flicker of that voice set her bones alight with a peculiar fire. She wouldn't yield. She couldn't. What if she was wrong? What if Blake and Lily were truly lost in the dark, and she was their last hope? Fighting against despair, she drew in a breath and plunged forward, eyes searching frantically through blackness. A glow broke through again, distinct and piercing. "Mom!" The sound punctured through the sinister murmurings, pulling her closer. It beckoned with a warmth that melted the fear for an instant. Straining to focus, she saw beneath the swirling darkness two tiny figures, shadows stretched across the ground, quivering as they reached out. Jessica! The voice grew stronger, the shadows recoiling, and with them, her resolve hardened. She raced towards the light, her hands gripping the wrench like a lifeline. Mommy! They echoed, each syllable floating on whispered breaths, but they were more real now, edged with pain and longing. Help us! Her breath quickened again, a surge of adrenaline forcing her legs to move. But the darkness surged too, attempting to pull her back, fingers of malice clawing at her ankles. Just as she thought she would break through, the darkness twisted and writhed. She stumbled, a shadow wrapping around her ankle, and she fell to her knees, hitting the ground hard. The wrench slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor. No! She howled, desperation spilling over. She felt a rush of bitter panic, her heart pounding against her ribcage like a wild thing desperate for escape. The shadows laughed, their voices merging into a monstrous symphony surrounding her. Stay with us forever. No! The scream erupted from her throat, claws ripping against her skin as she fought to stand. Her children, she needed to reach them. With every ounce of emotional strength she possessed, she pulled herself back to her feet. The figures shimmered like oil on water, fading and flickering. Mommy, they whispered, their forms dissolving into the hungry void. With an anguished cry, Jessica lunged forward, desperate to reach them, to grasp their hands, to pull them back from the brink of hell. Then something shifted, the darkness shivered, split like a rotten fruit. Light splintered through, brighter than anything she'd ever seen. It surged with heat, momentarily pushing back the shadows. Blake! Lily! I'm here! The voices rang clear, but before she could reach out, the shadows retaliated, roiling and curling hungrily, angry at being defied. Join us, they chanted, a horrific chorus that twisted her heart and mind. Suddenly she felt the ground shifting beneath her feet, the walls bending. Reality fractured, and she was swept into a whirlpool of darkness once again. The shadows grabbed at her, yanking her into the abyss. Mom! Please! Their voices faded, leaving an agonizing silence that clawed at her chest. No! Jessica screamed, fighting against the pull. And then, with a crashing snap, everything went black. What now? Was this the end? Or was there still a chance to fight back, to search for her children in the dark? What horrors awaited her in this deeper layer of despair? Jessica gasped, the cold air rushing into her lungs and spilling out in frantic puffs. She was no longer in the void but lying on a hard concrete floor. The unbearable weight of darkness dissipated just enough to reveal grim shapes. Walls flickered with faint light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Where? She mumbled, struggling to sit up. She felt bruised and battered, like she had wrestled with shadows. A chill wormed through her as she scanned her surroundings. The oppressive manner of the darkness had shifted. Now, it was a haunting shade of gray, crawling around the edges of her vision. Suddenly, she heard it again. The laughter. Not the bright sound of her children, but a nightmarish echo, hollow and taunting. Mommy! No! No! Fear blazed in her chest, and she sprang to her feet, searching wildly for the source. The echo bounced off the walls, stretching and distorting. She shivered, the chill seeping into her very bones. Vision sharpened, she realized she was in a dilapidated motel room. The door hung ajar, swinging slightly as if beckoning her closer to the threshold. Blake! Lily! She shouted, feeling the words claw at her throat. Nothing answered, yet the shadows giggled, swirling closer. Each footprint she dared to make reverberated into the ground, sending damp cold creeping through her shoes. Dread closed in around her. She rushed towards the door, heart hammering, the key from her pocket suddenly feeling like a lead weight. Would there be another corridor filled with horrors? Would she find her children or worse entities lying in wait? Just as she pushed through the doorway, the shadows seemed to hold back, momentarily stunned. It was as if they were sharing a collective breath of anticipation. But she couldn't linger, she needed to press forward. Outside the sun was setting, but a sickly red hue stretched across the horizon. Streets lay silent, in eerie emptiness, as if the world had fallen asleep to avoid witnessing some dreadful event. The air was heavy with the scent of decay. It twisted her stomach. Jessica, the voice curled around her, trailing off into a wheeze. She spun around, searching. A figure emerged from the darkness clad in ragged clothes, its eyes glowing like dying embers. "Join us, get away from me!" she screamed, backing away. The grotesque figure grinned, sharpening its features under the fading light, as its form began to morph. With a rush, she turned, feeling chased by something she couldn't see but could feel deep within her soul. Shadows raced along the ground, swallowing the last vestiges of warmth. She sprinted, pulse pounding in her ears like a frantic drum. "Mom! Help us!" The cry echoed again, bringing her to a hard stop. It was near, so close she could almost reach it. She dashed towards a flickering sign just ahead, bathing the pavement in weak, uneven light. "Motel of Horrors," it read. Distorted images flickered beneath, phantoms of old guests, their faces twisted in terror. "Blake! Lily!" she wailed, desperation rising into a scream. The sign's light dimmed, sparking off almost as if it were a heartbeat. Figures flickered in and out of the shadows surrounding her. Their tiny hands reached out. Her children? But it wasn't them. Horrified, she realized these were trapped souls, eternally wandering, searching. "Help us," they chanted, voices swimming in a thick chorus of despair. "What happened to you?" Panic gripped her, and the walls of the motel seemed to shift, pulsing with a dark life of their own. Light flickered, and in that instant she saw a door, wooden and aged, standing ajar. A faint warmth radiated from within. She felt drawn to it, a magnetic pull that whispered promises of safety. But who could trust doorways in a world where shadows conspired? Torn, she glanced back at the tortured souls reaching for her, and then at the tantalizing glow ahead. Only one way to find out. Am I making the wrong choice? She wondered, apprehension clenching her heart. Steeling herself, she stepped forward into the light. And then the shadows screamed. The light enveloped Jessica, warm and inviting, but it twisted quickly, turning to a blistering heat that scorched her skin. She stumbled backward, blinded for a moment, feeling the shadows press against her. The laughter erupted, the sound vibrating through her skull, sharp and merciless. "Mommy!" they called again, a siren's wail pulling at her core. She managed to regain her vision, squinting into the now illuminated room. It was not a sanctuary, but another nightmare. The walls were decorated in peeling floral wallpaper, and the air smelled of mildew and something far worse. A rusted bed frame stood against the far wall, its mattress sagging like an old man's grin. Creaking floorboards moaned as she stepped further in, the shadows hissing with annoyance. "Where are you?" she called, the voice of desperation thick in her throat. A low hum started in the corners of the room, growing louder, almost musical. The air felt alive, thumping under her skin, and Jessica's heart raced. She took a step toward the sound, mesmerized by its eerie melody. The shadows pulsed at her sides, angry and restless. Then, she saw it, an old television in the corner flickered to life. The screen glowed a sickly green as static swirled, forming ghostly images that danced before her eyes. Faces appeared for brief moments, twisted, screaming faces, eyes wide with agony. One face lingered longer than the rest. It was a woman, mouth opening in a wordless scream, then vanishing back into the haze. "Turn it off. Please, just turn it off," Jessica shrieked, feeling her sanity slip like sand through her fingers. The TV blared louder, each screech spilling out like a torrent of despair. Shadows curled tighter around her, whispering threats, fanning her fear higher. She turned, searching for another way out, but the door was now fused with the wall, lost in the dark. "Help us," the trapped souls chanted, their tiny, pleading voices melding with the screeching of the television. "Mom! Help us!" Jessica stumbled toward the screen, desperate, heart hammering like a warning drum. "Blake! Lily!" But the words didn't feel like they were her own. They had become another part of this twisted realm, echoing in time with the screeching. Suddenly, the TV went black. Silence. For a terrifying moment, she could only hear her own heart, and then a loud crack shattered the stillness. The walls shook as a rift tore open behind the television, black smoke spilling forth like an angry serpent, winding and slithering towards her. A face materialized in the fumes, a grotesque visage with hollow eyes and a grin that split its face. "Stay with us," it hissed. Without thinking, Jessica broke into a sprint, her feet pounding against the wood. The room seemed to stretch, doors appearing and disappearing around her, shadows grabbing at her clothes like greedy hands. She burst from the room, and the corridor opened up before her. Darkened doors lined both sides, whispering secrets, beckoning her to return. One door in particular caught her attention, glowing faintly, begging to be opened. "Mommy!" The voices cried again, this time filled with more urgency. Jessica hesitated, wrestling with a deep-seated fear. Was this a trap? Or was it the way to her children? The shadows shifted, gathering their strength, swirling into a cyclone of menace. "Do I dare take this chance?" she thought, dread clawing its way up her spine. Unable to stand still, she threw herself toward the glowing door, heart pounding, feeling the weight of every shadow behind her pressing closer. When she reached for the handle, the world seemed to implode around her. And then it all went black. What happens when darkness consumes everything? Is there hope in a place that thrives on despair? Jessica jolted awake, gasping for breath as if she had just emerged from the depths of an icy lake. Light streamed through a nearby window, spilling warmth into the room, erasing the darkness that had suffocated her moments before. Her heart raced, still pounding in her chest as she scanned her surroundings. This place felt familiar. "Mom!" A small voice broke through her haze, too frantic, small figures rushing toward her. "Blake!" "Lily!" The instant relief surged through her as she pulled her children close, enveloping them in her embrace. They were here, they were safe, and the nightmare felt like a distant memory. She cradled them tightly, taking in their presence warm cherubic faces framed by soft hair, eyes wide with concern but glistening with love. It was real, it was alive, and nothing could take her from them. "I thought I'd lost you both. Please don't leave us again," Blake whimpered, clutching at her shirt like a lifeline. "I want tea." "I promise," Jessica whispered, her voice breaking as she squeezed him tighter. They were in a quaint motel room, reminiscent of the Eden Motel but filled with a comforting air, devoid of malice. The previous shadows that stalked her mind began to dissolve like smoke in sunlight, replaced by the gentle hum of distant voices, perhaps other travelers, passing through their own stories. "How did we get here?" Lily asked, peeking out from behind Jessica's side. Jessica sighed, wiping away the remnants of bitter fear still trembling in her heart. "I don't know, but we're safe now." Before she could say more, a knock at the door interrupted. The sound was foreboding. It felt like an invitation, welcoming them to a new chapter. "Open it," she encouraged, rising on shaky legs as she ushered the kids to stand beside her. With a deep breath, she opened the door to reveal Mr. Grady, the strange motel owner from before, wearing a soft smile that no longer caused shivers to race up her spine. He felt different somehow, almost normal, as if the weight of the bizarre cycle had lifted. "Welcome back. I'm glad to see you're all together. It's a rare sight." "Where are we?" Jessica asked, her voice steadying with curiosity. This place is a refuge. A transitional space for families like yours," he replied, eyes glistening empathetically. "You faced your shadows and emerged. Some don't make it." Jessica felt a weight lift. They had faced the darkness together and returned. "We did. We really did." With a nod, Mr. Grady stepped aside, allowing light to surge through the open door. "I think it's time to say goodbye to the past, and look forward to the road ahead. You'll find the way home even stronger than before." Taking that first step toward the unknown, Jessica felt Blake and Lily's small hands clasped tightly in her own. They moved forward together, united, stronger after the tempest they endured. With each passing moment, the shadows of her fears dissipated, leaving behind only memories tinged with bravery and the promise of freedom. As they walked, the vibrant glow around them grew brighter, illuminating their path leading toward an open field. Birds chirped jubilantly overhead, and they slowed, taking in the sight of a world reborn. "Can we go home?" Lily asked, her voice filled with childlike hope. "Yes, my love. We've got so much to tell your dad about this adventure," Jessica replied, tears glistening in her eyes, not of sorrow, but of triumph. They could face anything together. "We're family," Blake added, puffing out his chest with pride. "Yes. Always together," she affirmed, a smile stretching across her face. They ventured on, their laughter mingling with the soft breeze brushing through the golden grass, each step signifying a healing from the past, and a promise of brighter tomorrows. In that moment, Chamberlain Eden Motel faded into myth, lost among tales of long journeys and whispered memories of darkness. But as they walked toward the endless horizon, Jessica knew that the shadows would never reclaim them, for they had found their light. Their past would always be part of the story they shared, but it would not define them. They were the family who survived the darkness. And that chapter was closed for good. Before you go, listen up! You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep us alive. We want to hear from you, so flood the comments with your reactions and theories. How did you feel about this ending? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support.